Hey, good morning, you guys, and welcome to Real Talk with Tamara. As you guys come into the room, please do hit the like button. Also, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. I hope that you guys are doing okay. I know that I am. I always express the importance of hitting the like button because the like button helps keep the video in the algorithm. So make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, comment, all of those great things, okay? I wanted to talk about make sure you sow in good seeds, okay? Because you're gonna reap just what you sow. Okay. Um yeah, we've always been in the season of reaping and sowing. Those are just the laws of the earth. And sowing good seeds is extremely important. Okay. We're living in a time now where people have gotten very twisted, right? They feel like that they can do whatever they want to do to a person just because they feel like it. I'm talking about say anything they want to say to them, do anything they want to say to them. And then if they feel bad after they have done that, I guess they feel like they can go back and say, well, I apologize. But just understand once you have done something to somebody, once you have put those words out there, those are things that cannot be taken back. So that's why we got to make sure that we are practicing sowing good seeds, right? Make sure you sow good seeds. I truly believe in sowing good seeds because the seeds that you plant in your front yard, those are the seeds that's going to grow in your front yard. Okay. If you plant weeds in your front yard, those weeds are going to grow up in your front yard, and that's what you're going to get entangled in. Okay. So it's just important. I was thinking about that this morning as I get ready to start my day. It is important that we treat people how we want to be treated. I think so often what we do is we get caught up in you know, treating people a certain way because of what somebody else says. And sometimes we could really be messing over a blessing or a connect that God has sent into our lives. Sometimes people are put into our lives because they could be the connect to the next person that could be a blessing to us, or that person could be a blessing, but we get caught up and believing and listening to what other people say. I'm not saying you shouldn't take heed. What I'm saying is you don't have to act on what people tell you because you don't ever really know why people do and say what they say, right? So when people tell me something about somebody, I'm not naive. I'll listen, but I'll put it in my back pocket to dissect it myself. I definitely don't have all that emotionalism going on um, and just react based on what somebody else says because you don't know if the person is bitter. You don't know what is going on, and sometimes people don't take too kind to people being friendly with you, right? Because they're not friendly with them, right? And so they work to try and dismantle that because they just can't stand watching it, right? Because they don't have the character. People may not mess with them, but they might see something in you, and if you're emotional, if you're weak minded, you will quickly get about demolishing uh, relationships that could potentially have been good for you. So we have to just remember to just sow good seeds and not only dissect what the person tell you about the other person and watch it, watch the person that told you, right? Watch them. Start paying attention to their character. Start paying attention to their patterns, why they may have said that. And you might find out see some things for yourself as it relates to that. Because once you say things and do things, especially when people don't really know you like that or whatever, when hey, you'll ruin a relationship before it even starts. I'm talking about a potential acquaintanceship, a potential friendship, or whatever. Because once you say things based on what you told or react based on what you told, and you get to thinking about, man, I really hate I did that, and that person really ain't like that. I mean, hey, it's too late at that point. People go, I didn't even know that person. They flipped out on me. I don't know nothing about them. Hey, I accept your apology, but stay over there, right? So just be extremely, careful about that. And just remember, as I always say, to sow good seeds. Also, I like for people to speak what they want into the atmosphere, but make sure it lines up with righteousness, right? If you're speaking, if you're a voodoo priest and you call yourself speaking death and all of that upon somebody, just understand that it's going to be looking at you at your front door, right? Because what you put into the atmosphere, it always comes back to you, right? But as it relates to manifestations for yourself, make sure you speaking those things into the atmosphere and make sure it lines up. I ain't talking about ladies trying to speak somebody's husband into the atmosphere. I ain't talking about that, okay? I'm talking about speaking, sowing good seeds, right? Sowing good seeds and speaking what you want into the atmosphere, and it lines up with the word of God, right? If it lines up with the word of God, you keep positivity around you, keep poisonous people away from around you. Just get that stuff away from around you, right? And watch and see how you can think it and speak it. And by the time you get into the future, if it lines up with righteousness, right? It'll already be there waiting on you. You know, I always ask God, give me what you would want me to have. I don't look at other people and say, God, they made her the supervisor, make her get fired so I can get the job. You know, no, not that. My mind is not twisted like that because I'm not a jealous person. I'm gonna tell y'all something. I may be a lot of things, okay? And I think people might have an issue with me because I have standards, right? People have issues with people that have standards. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day and they were saying, I was seeing some people in the chat and you're in somebody else's chat, and they were saying, I can't understand why this person continuously throws shots out at you. But I was looking at some folks in their chat that was in your chat, and they were saying I didn't like her anyways. But the thing about it is, I wish that the people that secretly don't like me, I wish I could keep them away from my chat. I said, if we could just, I could just find a way because it don't bother me to keep them away. But it seems like when people don't like you and they have an obsession with consistently trying to see what you're doing, trying to see what you're talking about. It's really, it's not that they don't like you. It's just an unhealthy obsession, right? I was like, well, dog, I wish I could find a way to keep them away. But as soon as I come on, they get that notification. They're the first ones in the chat. Or they go make other pages because they can't stay away, right? Okay. But people have issues, right? With what number one, people are afraid of what they don't understand. People are very jealous hearted, okay? And some people are just easy to be manipulated, okay? And um I will say this, I may be a lot of things, okay? But I ain't never in my life been no jealous person. I understand that whatever it is that I want, if it lines up with righteousness, I can get it. Mm. And if I don't get it, if I try and I don't get it, it's because it's not for me. Okay? It's because it's not for me. I often think about the police department when I was trying to get into the police academy. I was already working in investigative services, right? As a clerk. And I when I went through, I was constantly trying to get into the police academy, right? And I couldn't. I went out there. I just had a baby, and I was so out of shape. I almost passed out trying to pass the PT. And I remember a guy who went all the way up to be the chief, Chief Perry, for the Memphis Police Department. He was always outspoken, right? We ended up becoming the best of friends. He ended up training me in everything, right? As far as the PT, we used to go up to Whitehaven High School, and he would train me. Shout out to Chief Perry, and to make sure that I got in shape. And so I got into shape and I was able to pass the PT, I started having issues with a lady not wanting me to really get in because she had an issue with I was working in investigative services with nothing but men, right? I was a young girl. And she saw that those men was just letting me have my way, right? In which I was pretty quiet. It wasn't nothing to do. I wasn't doing anything, right? but they didn't work me hard. They didn't do any of that, right? They basically had me spoiled because at one point I was pregnant up there, right? And so she had gotten out to the academy. She kept rejecting me. So I remember the captain and the major was calling out there, was like, "What's your issue? She is here with us. She down here with us. She works for the department. Why are you rejecting her? You know her." And she came up with all of these different, it wasn't me, it was the board and this and that. And so that's why I say you have to sow good seeds because you never know who God sends. There, first of all, there's always a ram in the bush, and you never know who God sends to bless you. So I remember at the time the police director, they had overtime and Crime Stoppers at that time before I started working in Crime Stoppers. They had me working it at night because they didn't have anybody to work it. So they would transfer the lines around there with me. So they started bringing people down there to work overtime, right? So that I wouldn't have to answer the phones all the time and do my job, right? And so I'll never forget Miss Ernestine was in there, and I remember the captain saying, "The police directors," and they meant well. The police directors, um, secretary is working overtime in the office with us. Don't say nothing to her because we think they sent her down here to spy on us to see what we doing at night. Make sure you be careful. You know how you go to lunch and stay 3 hours. Make sure you come back and this, and that, and don't show her nothing. Therefore, if she don't, we don't, you don't show her how to work Crime Stoppers, she won't come back. Okay. So I remember that lady was sitting there and I was sitting there typing because at that point we decided, well, we're just gonna send a memo to the police director because she keeps rejecting you for personal reasons. And I was sitting there just typing up my um memo, right? And a lot of the investigators was coming through saying, add this, they helping me type it up. So I remember she was just she was sitting across from me because she was working out of my office and she was just having a hard time. She would ask me questions and I'd be really short with her. I was very vague. And I looked over there at her and I saw she was having a hard time. I've always had a heart. Okay. I was raised differently. I'm just not a gutter rat. Okay. And so I remember I looked over there at her and I was like, Lord, I cannot let this lady just struggle. I can't. And I was like, do you need some help? She was like, yeah, I'm having a hard time. I said, okay, I'll help you. And I remember one of the investigators got up and he was walking through the office and just turned around and looked. I guess he was saying to himself, Tamara, that's not that's not the plan. That is not the plan. Do not show her nothing. And but I did. Okay. And so she started trying to have conversation with me, and she saw the investigators constantly stopping and saying, add this in there for for the memo, put this, let the director know this and that. And so she said, what, if you don't mind me asking, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm writing up a memo because um I passed the PT. There's a young lady out there at the academy that keeps rejecting me. She won't allow me to get past the background when I don't have anything on my background. I work here at the police department. She's like, oh, okay. And she was like, well, when you finish with that memo, let me look at it. I said, okay. So when I finished with it, I let her look at it. She said, okay, well, I'm going to keep it. And when I get to work in the morning, I'm going to just put it in the hands of the director. Now, this was his assistant, right? And I said, really? She's like, yeah, I'll give it to him. So it won't get lost or anything. I give it directly to him. I said, okay. When I got to work the next day, I get a call from her in my office before I sat down good. The director wants to see you. So I run upstairs to the 12th floor and she said, and the director says, Miss Ernestine told me about what had happened and I had them to call out to the academy. She has no reason to keep rejecting you. You don't have anything bad in your background. You work here. You passed the PT test. You're definitely, qualified. As far as your schooling, you have schooling, but you can finish out your hours. Once you become a traffic officer, you can finish out your hours. You know, um, we'll finish paying for your schooling until you get the amount of hours, and then you go back and be a police officer. So he said, so what I did was I called out there and I told them to put you back in the process and you will start the academy in June. I said, "Oh my God." Now, this had been almost 2 years of this lady rejecting me just because she could, just because of her jealousy, right? So that's why I say you never know who God sends to help you. She was the helping point. The very person that they had told me not to talk to, not to help, ended up being a blessing for me. And even though when I went back through the academy, I ended up hurting myself, I was able to get all of my schooling except for 11 hours. I should have finished. And hey, I was able to make a good money being very young for my two children, get good benefits and all of that until my season was up with that, right? When my season was up with that, I injured my hip. I only had like 4 weeks because we had gotten fitted for our uniforms. I had been assigned to the downtown precinct. And I had been, well, I've been, my original assignment would have been the downtown precinct, but because I had worked for the police department, already, I had known a lot of the lieutenants and stuff, but they was going to TA me, which would be temporarily assigned to the organized crime unit, because the lieutenants and stuff, when the recruits are going through, okay, they when the recruits are going through, they come over to the class and start watching us while we're PTing and stuff, looking at recruits, that new faces that they can bring over to the organized crime unit, to do undercover work, right? And I remember Lieutenant telling me, T, when you, Tam, when you graduate, you want to come over to organized crime unit? And I said, yeah. He was like, yeah, we need new faces and do some Vice and Narcotic, do some undercover work. I was like, okay, cool. And so it didn't work out that way, right? But there's always a ram in the bush. That was my season with the Memphis Police Department. I worked with them for many years. And then when my season was up, God removed me for a reason, right? Because they actually ended up sending Martoya Lane in my place because I injured my hip. And unfortunately, Martoya Lane was doing an undercover sting, right? And when they went up into the house, I believe it was in North Memphis or something like that, she ended up losing her life, right? And I often think about that. When your season is up somewhere, it's good for, hey, it may hurt you, but just always know when you prayed up, God is always removing you for a reason, right? And I went on and had a long career at the sheriff's office, right? And when that season was up, God elevated me to something else. And when that season was up, God elevated me to something else, and He has elevated me to something else, right? And so that's why it's always good to sow good seeds. I've always treated people right, even when I fussed at them or whatever. I've never been able to have any malice. Anybody could tell you she gonna speak her mind, she gonna tell you all. But I tell you what, she sure gonna help you. She ain't gonna try to withhold anything from you. And I think that's one of the reasons why God has been able to bless me with so much, right? I'm talking about as far as having people to help me. I called somebody yesterday that I had worked for some years back, right? And I mean, I've always been a hard worker, and I was told about some grants and stuff. And so when I called the person, I sent the person, I reached out to the person, sent them an email, and I was like, they've been elevated to work, right next to the mayor and all that. So I don't know if they're going to respond, but the person ended up calling me back within 10 minutes of me sending that email, and they were so helpful. I'm going to CC this person, and I'm going to look into this for you, and we're going to see what we could do, and I'm going to connect you with that person because I know this person can get you this, and that. And within probably 30 minutes of our phone conversation in, and that person has sent out a blast email and had connected all of these people up under him in the email, and I ended up getting results immediately. So that's why I say it's good to sow good seeds, right? Always sow good seeds. It don't make no sense to be jealous and hateful and trying to block anybody else, because you can't block them. All the time that you spend trying to do something to somebody else, you could be creating good karma for yourself instead of bad karma, okay? And the last thing I'm gonna say is, I think about, a lot of what has happened in YouTube, right? And it's going to be some women to really take some losses because of some things that they've done for some YouTubers, right? And to include their freedom, okay? If they don't get them a good lawyer, and so we know their jobs. So, but be very meticulous about what you do because you lack self-esteem and you have jealousy in your heart. Don't be so easily influenced because a person that has nothing to lose will help you to lose any and everything because they don't care. They never had nothing, right? So we got to be very, very meticulous about that. And when you feel jealousy and evilness coming on, because see, nobody could ever get me to troll. Nobody could ever get me to get personal information on people, especially if it's going to mess with my freedom and livelihood. It's going to make me lose. Nobody could ever push me to do anything like that. There's something on the inside of those people that's willing to risk their livelihoods. They gambled and they lost, right? To do evil things. So that all goes back to reaping and sowing. Be careful about the seeds that you sow because the seeds that you sow are the seeds that's going to grow. Make sure you're planting good seeds, okay? Anyways, I got to run. I got some good things happening today. Y'all know those connections because of me sowing good seeds. I got a seat at the table today, okay? As a matter of fact, I got two meetings, okay? And I got a seat at the table. And guess what? I remember what my dad said: when you get a seat at the table, gal, you better not sit there and say nothing. Okay, you better make your petition known. Okay, and that's exactly what I do. So I got to go get me a good little suit from out of Macy's. I got plenty of suits, but I was like, I want me a new one because I got a seat at the table. I want to sit there with a spanking brand new sharp suit on. So I want to be at Macy's door when it opens, okay? But anyways, I want you guys to please like, share, and subscribe. If you would like to support the channel, you could definitely support the channel via Cash App.